afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a sunny, quite chilly, a little bit windy Carrow Road for this afternoon's game between Norwich City and Newcastle. We're going to bring you the team news very, very shortly from a Norwich City perspective. A very interesting game. I think the predicament they're in, it's the only currency they're operating in really at the moment is wins. So it's important that we see that today, basically. I think it's the easiest way to sum that up. Paddy will pan around and show you Carrow Road, which is filling up slowly. There's some Newcastle fans, but very vocal outside, I think that's fair to say. But we should have the team news for you in a minute or two. Probably, I guess, the key point of if Dean Smith will change it. I suppose there's the debate around the left back as well. Does he stick with Dimitris Giannoulis? Will he go with Brandon Williams? We'll have the answer to that in a minute. Also, from the Newcastle perspective, it's going to be interesting as well. And here is the team news. One change for Norwich City. Christoph Zimmermann starts ahead of Ben Gibson. Williams is on the bench ahead of Lucas Rook, who is here today because I saw him earlier on walking around the pitch. So Norwich City's team looks like this: Tim Krul in goal, Byram, Hanley, Zimmermann and Giannoulis the back four, Norman and McLean in the midfield two, Dowell on the right, Rashica on the left with Lisa Malou behind Timu Pukki. The subs bench: Gunn, Gibson, Aarons, Gilmore, Sorensen, Williams, Schollis, Rowe and Poeta. So, Pat, if I throw that over to you, I guess given that, well, really the one big mistake that Ben Gibson made at Old Trafford last weekend, that probably doesn't come as a huge surprise to see Christoph Zimmermann back in the starting 11.
No, look, do you know, I nearly put him in did that switch for my print lineup today, and thought, maybe we'll just err on the side because Zimbo hasn't played. Can't remember the last game he played here, but anywhere this season. So you're going back a while, and as a result, I thought he might just give Gibbo another opportunity. But it was bad. Let's be honest, it was bad here against Brentford, and he was also talking up again yesterday. Dean Smith, too many individual errors. As a group collectively, he feels they're moving in the right direction, and again, although they lost at Old Trafford, I think there was more than enough evidence of that. Following on from Burnley, following on maybe to a lesser degree from Brighton. But, if you're making the errors that Ben Gibson's made of late, then it's very difficult to pick up results at this level against this level of opponent. So, not a huge surprise. And as so much of it feels at the minute, looking through a prism of maybe it's gone for this season, but what does next season look like? On Obama Daly to come back into the mix, and I think he will be a big factor in that central defensive situation, moving as it looks now into a championship campaign. But it is an early marker for Zimbo today to come in and be strong, be robust, do your job defensively, don't make any silly errors, and then who knows? It's all about, as we've seen with Kieran Dowell now in the last two games, if you get in and you start to prove that you can impact on this side in a positive direction, I think Dean Smith will be looking at that and thinking, maybe you can be an option for me for next season. So not a surprise, as you say, Connor, any way, shape or form, but I did just think he might err on the side of keeping Gibson in, because when he made those errors against Brentford, I think actually from memory the following game he dropped him out the side, and then he did come back in, and then he was good again then up until Manchester United. So in terms of that pattern, he's repeated that again, so we'll see. But if with everybody else, and obviously McLean has come through that fractured toe issue, so I didn't expect too many changes, and you just hope that, result aside at United, that they continue in that positive fashion. Certainly, we're back here at Carrow Road. If they pick up where they left off against Burnley, I think hopefully the majority of the fans coming here today would settle for that. Maybe not the pocket of black and white supporters over, as I'm looking directly ahead, who are making, as you said, Connor, a hell of a lot of noise when I came past the away pub. So they're in fine spirits. They're safe now, aren't they? So they've had an unbelievable run. 9 league wins, I think, since the turn of the year. We know some of the assistants they've had in the transfer window and the whole Saudi-backed takeover and the tens and tens of millions that he spent. But Eddie Howe still has to meld a team together and an effective winning team, and he's done that and a bit more, because to be safe at this stage of the season from where they were, we only have to go back to the team's meeting in late November at St James's. Norwich were above Newcastle, and as we all know, 10 men for 80 minutes, they should have won that game. So how different trajectories can change. Thanks, Glenn.
Yes, absolutely. it is an interesting one. We'll come back to the left back situation in a moment, because there was a lot of talk pre-game about that. Thank you very much. I'll bring you the Newcastle team. They've got Martin Dubravka in goal, Kraft, Lascelles, Byrne and Target at the back, Guimaraes, Longstaff and Willock the midfield three, with Jacob Murphy returning to Carrow Road and getting a start for Newcastle today. Alan St Maximin and Joel Linton making up their front three. Their subs-bench: Carl Darlow, Fabian Scher, John Joe Shelby, Matt Ritchie, Fernandez, Manquillo, Chris Wood, Miguel Almiron and Dwight Gale. So that's Newcastle's team today. Some rotation, I think that's fair to say, from Eddie Howe. But Pat, if we come back to Norwich and look at that left-back situation, because I think a lot of Norwich fans were debating this yesterday, and it might have been you. I wasn't at the press conference, so you might have to say, but it might have been you that put this to Dean Smith about Dimitris Giannoulis, who put in a pretty good performance at Old Trafford. Do you think that's the right call, I suppose, is the obvious question, that he keeps his place this afternoon?
Yes, I think it is. Because as Dean Smith went on to, and he said this recently, but again, he repeated it yesterday, he thought Giannoulis was one of the better operators at Brighton. He thought he carried it on against Burnley, and he certainly did against Manchester United. Thought it was interesting. Dean Smith said in the double pivot that Norwich are operating in this recent kind of upturn in productivity, certainly with the ball, it frees the fullbacks to get a little bit higher and a little bit more advanced. Which, if you contrast that with when Dean Smith first came in, I remember him talking about Max Aarons, and he'd almost told him, "No, I want you pretty much just to focus on the defensive side of the halfway line for now, because we need to shore up and maybe curb his attacking instincts." But it feels like in terms of what he's demanding from his fullbacks, there's a bit more license. And for me, if you're lining up Williams and Giannoulis and who offers more going forward and with the ball, it's Giannoulis all day long. That's the strongest suit of his game. And of course, he triggered the move that led to the first goal for Norwich last Saturday at Old Trafford. So the interesting thing I think that Dean Smith is talking about with Dimmy is that they've worked and are working on the defensive elements of his game, and not diving in and around his own penalty box, not making the decision for the attacker, and almost staying on your feet, really, and letting your direct opponent make the first move. And that's interesting, because I think, certainly I feel, since he's came here, you would say, looking at him defensively, that's where he's a little bit suspect, and probably hasn't had to work on those elements in his game hitherto until he arrived in England. So there's no doubt if he could improve defensively, they've got a very good player on their hands, and certainly dropping back to the Championship, I would be more than expecting him to have a very good season at that level, because I think with the ball and in terms of ambition and getting forward, he is, for me, better than Williams. So the only debate really is in terms of the defensive aspects, and if he's improving in that area, for me it's the right call. Keep him in. And ultimately, Brandon Williams is a Manchester United player, and he will not be here come the end of this season. And going back to what I said initially, it looks like it's gone for this season in terms of Premier League survival. So if it is about building into next season, then let's build around players who are going to be here for me.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And on that, obviously, Billy Gilmore on the bench as well. If you want to talk about it, like needs Mateus Norman does start. However, I mean, around the way that this Norwich City team have played in the last two games, it's been counter-attacking. There's obviously been heavily on Timo Pukki and Milo Rashica stretching the play. Kieran Dowell and Lise Malou in kind of these revived roles, coming short a little bit. It seems to have worked quite well. I mean, as you said right from the bat, only Liverpool have picked up more points this year from the Newcastle in 2022. Of course, their revival has been pretty incredible, albeit maybe not given what they spent in January, but there's certainly been some good coaching from Eddie Howe in there as well. But I mean, how do Norwich City go about affecting this game? Because at home against a team, albeit who have done well since the turn of the year, do you feel that they will adopt the same counter-attacking approach that we've seen in the last few games, and that they have looked vastly improved at when doing, in fairness?
It would be a surprise. Absolutely hairs all over the shop here with this wind. I don't know what's going on. But it would be.
Power of hairspray, Pat. Power of hairspray.
Okay, fair enough. Now the PA decides to chirp up, which wouldn't be a bad thing to drown me out. But I can't see how they would regress, because they do just look more comfortable with the ball, and it is based on a counter-attacking, as Dean Smith keeps talking about, the transitional elements. I must confess I haven't really studied Newcastle too closely in this last month or two, so whether you want to dive in, Connor. But if they're set up to sort of try and dominate teams in terms of possession, then that plays into Norwich's hands. if they want to counter, then it's a slightly different challenge. But I still think in this system, if you've got your two pivots, in McLean and Norman, offering that defensive platform, then you're looking to get a Dow, you're looking to get Elise Malou on the ball. They're both very comfortable in possession. So that'll be an interesting facet. If Norwich, as they haven't had in the last 3 games, more of the ball, is this system, are these players within the system as comfortable to try and dictate the play? Because again, moving forward, and if it is the Championship, more often than not, you'd expect Norwich to have more of the ball at that level. So they'll have to be comfortable in possession. And that's an intriguing element today. But yeah, there's no doubt that they look better set up at the minute to hit teams on the counter, ultimately. And if that is the case, then, as Dean Smith said, as good as Newcastle have been recently, the majority of the points have been amassed at St James's. They've been less impressive away from home. So, they're not a team who can come here today and you think, well, how do we cause them a problem? How do we get a positive result? But ultimately, Norwich will have to be as good as they've been here against Burnley and as good as they were in their best elements at Manchester United, I think.
Yeah, and a team, of course, that played in midweek as well. So there's that element. I think that's probably reflected in Eddie Howe's selection today. A fair bit of rotation in that team compared to what they have been playing. Finally, then, Pat, before we lose ourselves, our voices in the wind here at Carrow Road, what are you kind of expecting from this afternoon's game? Because for Norwich, as I said right at the top, it really feels like, as is the case in the league table, to be fair, that it's a win that they need today. And I suppose the carrot of Everton playing tomorrow and reducing that gap to 5 points, which again is quite a significant number. But that is what has to be achieved by the end of today from a Norwich City perspective, doesn't it?
Well, if you having spent the majority of this broadcast saying it's gone and it's about next season, then if there to be any lingering hope, however optimistic that would be / delusional, then it's a win and nothing but, because Everton this past week hit back to get a point and then Burnley win as well. So that window is narrowing very, very quickly. So. It's a win in that context, but in a broader context, I think they need to put a positive result on the board as well. It's not enough to say, well, didn't they do well in phases of a game like at Manchester United, but ultimately fall the wrong side of it, because they need to start finding that winning mentality again, because they're going to need it where they're going off here. Ultimately, if we see another step forward from a Pukki, well, not so much a Pukki, but from a Dowell and a Pierre-Lise Malou in tandem with Timu Pukki, then again, it's more evidence for what's to come, and ultimately it's about, for me now, these supporters are here today and everybody who's not here but want to see Norwich do well. Just give them something between now and the end of the season, that they can go into a summer where it'll still be tough and there'll still be plenty of questions that'll have to be answered about what's gone wrong this season, but at least there's some semblance of we're now maybe embarking on a more positive phase. Because if they repeat what they did 2 seasons ago and sort of tail off and feel sorry for themselves almost and rack up the defeats, then that's going to do nothing to lift the music or the mood around this place. So and what I would say, flip side, you talked about it, Newcastle played midweek, they're now effectively safe. Eddie Howe's made a few changes. Is that intensity, is that razor sharp focus quite there now? They've achieved an objective that maybe for a large proportion of this season, that many around that club, their fan base, felt this is going to be a tough season. It hasn't proved to be that in the final analysis. Does that just take the edge off, and can Norwich, as a result, profit from that a little bit? But I still think I'm going to be positive. 2-1 Norwich. What about you, Connor?
Good man. Well, I was actually going to leave the viewers with some interesting statistics I've got in front of me here, which is that Norwich are unbeaten in the last 4 Premier League games against Newcastle. In general, I've been winless in 6 against them previously. Newcastle haven't won here, of course, since 1994. They've drawn 2 of the games and lost 5 of them. All 5 of Norwich City's Premier League wins against Newcastle have come in home games, and they've beaten no side more at Carrow Road in the Premier League era than Newcastle United. So there's plenty of historical statistics there. Maybe some people will suggest that points to a long-term Norwich situation today. Let's hope not. So I'm going to go optimistic as well. I think, sadly, as you said, probably too little too late, but I do think they're going to win 2-1 here today, actually, which is slightly unnerving. We've predicted a Norwich City win this season, but we shall see. There'll be plenty more across the afternoon on the Pink and Plus app. Make sure you download that. You can get a free trial now for all of our matchday content, including myself on the live blog this afternoon. Come and join in on the conversation and the updates. There's Carrow Road in all its glory. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.